Rocky Mountain Sasquatch organization. We're near the Jardine Juniper mountain trail where a couple of mountain trail runners had a pretty scary up close Bigfoot sighting and encounter. We are very interested in their recent sighting because a Bigfoot was filmed only a few miles from here last year. Plus, during our investigations of that video, we have documented dozens and dozens of Bigfoot tracks in the area, along with several other sightings that have been reported to our team since. We're going to glass the ridge lines, tree lines, rock outcroppings along this Bigfoot sighting location, looking for the elusive Sasquatch, and go over the recent sighting report with you. Jeffrey writes RMSO. My wife and I currently live in Logan. We are in our late 20s and early 30s. A little background on us. We are both extremely outdoorsy people. I am from a remote area on the north slope of the Uintas and basically live on the mountain, hunting, fishing, logging, hiking, and ranching. I spent 5 years as a wildland firefighter at a high level with the Forest Service and BLM, Department of Interior. I absolutely love wildland fire, the community, the science, and the history, and have the fondest memories. It took me some amazing remote areas and tested my mental, physical fitness to the extreme. I am still involved to a lesser degree. We hike and trail run on a ton of the cache and back home in the Uintas. I have never had anything weird happen that I can recall except a few tree knocks and rocks thrown in high elevation lakes. I didn't know what those were at the time and basically just ignored those things. We are big fans of your channel and Sasquatch Chronicles and Steve with How to Hunt. As we are very outdoorsy, the subject of Sasquatch has always been interesting to us. We have pretty open minds and accept that the universe is massive, and to think that man or science has all the answers is preposterous. Now to the incident. We had been hiking the Jardine Juniper Trail a lot this year, as well as other trails to get ready for hunting season. The Jardine Trail is one of our favorites, and we spent a lot of time there this year, as it is a good long trail with a little traffic. I had logged about 23 hikes, runs there this year, sometimes alone, sometimes with my wife and others. In August of this year, 2021, we started hiking in the evenings because it was so hot in the daytime. We had done a couple of evening hikes the first part of August with no problems whatsoever. Usually, we would make it back to the truck by dark. On the night that it happened, which I believe was August 10th, I lost track of time and we got a little bit of a late start. We were above the main switchbacks, which is about 3 miles in, when it started getting dark on us, so we decided to turn around. We were both working full time and were hiking this area about 3 times a week at this point, so we didn't always do the full route each time, usually just a 5 to 7 mile power hike round trip. We were pretty sure we were the last ones up there. We had been passed by a couple of bikers on the way up. We were moving pretty fast and quiet as we were making our way down the switchbacks, just enjoying the late summer stillness in the large timber. The slope is steep, but the trail winds through large trees nicely and gives you glimpses of the basin below and high peaks above. It was twilight, so maybe 15 minutes or so until we needed headlamps to see. We came around this slight turn in the trail right before the large hairpin turn at the bottom of the slope, and almost as if caught by surprise, I saw this massive jet black figure go from standing to crouching through a small gap in the timber about 50 yards ahead and just downslope of the trail. Looking back, I am surprised that I didn't freeze or turn back to my wife to confirm what we saw, but all that crossed my mind was, that's weird. Without pause, we kept moving briskly. It was too dark to see detail, but light enough to see our surroundings quite well. Sometimes you think your mind plays tricks on you in the twilight hours, especially in timber with so many shadows. It seemed just seconds after seeing the creature I heard a loud crack against a prominent large tree directly upslope from us on our left. May have been two cracks. I really can't remember. I turned around thinking that maybe my wife was messing with me and throwing rocks. As I turned and my eyes caught hers, I could tell she wasn't throwing anything, as we were both tired and dazed from our hike. My mind started racing a million miles an hour trying to figure out what animal could do that. The answer is obvious: none. Both of us were frozen. We were trying to figure out what was going on. Another rock flew directly over us, and this time it smacked the tree with unbelievable force. You could feel the air from it zipping by. It reminded me of my baseball days, hearing the sound of the seams of a fast pitch whizzing through the air. I think I quietly mumbled, "Someone is messing with us." The mind does funny things when full of adrenaline. I could tell that we both came to the same realization at the time without saying a word, just by looking at her facial expression. That realization was that, oh, we are not alone and it isn't human. I didn't feel in danger, but needless to say, the feeling was get going, which we obliged. I ripped my handgun out of my pack as we moved, but it was almost as if my arm was paralyzed at my side with the gun pointing down at the ground. I felt helpless even with the 10mm in my hand. The thought in my mind was, what good is this going to do? Whether it was annoyed or amused, I really can't say. I just wanted to put as much space between us and it as quickly as possible. The only way I can describe it is like when someone sees a ghost. The interaction is real, but it isn't normal. You struggle to grasp what happened. It's hard to comprehend things every time your universe expands. We moved almost to the point of running until we popped out of the timber and it opened up a bit, still feeling uneasy as we had a long way to go in the dark. We briefly had to stop to put our headlamps on, not saying a word other than, "That's weird." The whole way out, my mind kept trying to reason with what had happened, but it couldn't. It was so deliberate. We made it back in record time. I didn't put two and two together until we were back at the trailhead. What I saw seconds before it happened was the being that threw the rocks. My wife said she also saw it. It stood out like a sore thumb. Even though it was getting dark when I saw it, its blackness was almost radiating against the dark shadows of the forest. So many emotions were going through me. Confusion, anger, intrigue, curiosity. I kept thinking, why us and why now? After all this time in the outdoors, I wanted to try to write it off as me going crazy. My mind was playing tricks on me. Maybe, if that had happened to me while I was alone, I might have written it off. But I wasn't alone, and what we both experienced was very real. I was so disturbed by that incident at first, but I couldn't let this thing control me. I had a couple of guys I worked with go up with me a couple of nights later. We stopped at the same gap in the timber so I could better gauge its size, seeing the pocket it was in better lighting. It had to have been massive. The interesting thing is, when we were right next to this thing during its baseball practice, the foliage was too thick to see anything. It had to have been less than 10 yards away. It was also in between two trails, as it was a large switchback. One moment we were directly above it, the next we were directly below it. Eerie doesn't begin to describe how I felt. To be so close and not see a thing is unreal. I also had the guys throw fist-sized rocks hard as they could, point blank at the large tree in the same area to compare sounds. My blood ran cold as I heard their rocks make little ping sounds compared to the loud cracks from the 2 nights previous. The realization was creeping in that these things are real, and what we had encountered was in fact a Sasquatch. In the following weeks, I intentionally went back with others in the evening to prove to myself and this creature that I wasn't going to let it control me. I went down so many rabbit holes trying to understand what these things are. I have read and listened to so many other people's accounts, which has helped me a lot. My wife and I love the outdoors too much to let this dictate how we live. For all I know, they have always been around me. It's just that now I'm hyper aware. Anyway, I know that this incident is pretty tame compared to others, and I'm okay with that. Haha. I would take a rock throwing to a screaming or growling any day. I hope that this information is helpful, and I would be happy to answer any questions. Feel free to use my name. Thanks for all you do, Jeff. RMSO responds, "Hi, Jeff. Appreciate hearing from you. When you saw its black shape, could you estimate the height, width, or weight? Could you see its face or eyes?" Jeff responds, "The night it happened, its sheer size and dark color caught my eye first. When it rapidly went from standing crouching, as if we caught it by surprise, it made it hard to see the details of its face, but I could tell it was looking right at us. Even though it was getting dark, you could still see pretty good. Its dark color was almost radiating against the other shadows of the forest. When I went back up there the other day, I wanted to get a better idea of the size of this thing in better lighting by peering through the same gap in the timber and seeing the pocket where it stood. It had to have been massive. I would put it at 9 feet tall easily, maybe more. It was very broad as well. I've been right next to moose hundreds of times back home in the UNAs. We have also worked many draft horses. This thing made them seem small. It still amazes me how, when it was throwing rocks a few moments after we saw it, we could have been directly next to it, literally right above it, closer than 10 yards. The foliage was too thick to see it at that point, also because it was in a switchback. We were within 10 yards of it from below. It blended in perfectly. Appreciate your Bigfoot sighting report, Jeff. These sighting reports help give us a picture, a window into the life of the creature, its habits, what it may eat, the resources it may use when we go into an area and check around. You're right in the middle of a Bigfoot sighting hotspot. Bigfoot was filmed last year, not too far from where you had your sighting, even closer to where you had your sighting many years ago. A gentleman and his dog was ran out of camp by two Sasquatch that come down out of the trees into his camp. Terrifying experience. I hope everybody enjoyed this Bigfoot sighting. If you've had a Bigfoot sighting, please email us at rmsobigfoot@gmail.com. Keep on watching. We're going to keep on squatching.